Hearing Bang Inhai's soft, pleading tone, Chen Lang hesitated, unable to bring himself to leave just yet. He turned his head back to glance at Shen Yi. The boy's round, sparkling eyes were fixed on his father, as if he too craved a hug like any other child. Being so small, he could not understand why Shen Lang was so indifferent toward him. Chen Lang sighed inwardly. Tusk, this child truly made one's heart ache. He then picked Shen Yi up and stroked his cheeks. Receiving a hug, the little one grinned widely, as happy as if he had struck gold, yet Shen Lang's heart remained heavy, for this baby was just an innocent infant and everything was merely survival instinct. A moment later, Bang and Hi carried Shen Yi away, both of them feeling as warm as if they had just drunk ginger soup. Bang and Hi coaxed him. I told you, father loves you the most, doesn't he? Not long after Bang and Hi left with the child, Sword King Lai Tangyu quietly entered, and the atmosphere in the room grew heavy as if a damp mist were rising. He said that the two scholars from Skycliff Sea Pavilion hadn't come to save anyone this time but had another motive, one that must absolutely not be revealed. Chen Lang replied that he knew. They had come for Shen Yi, waiting for a result that didn't meet their expectations. Since Shen Yi did not possess the god-defying bloodline, they withdrew in disappointment, but that was only on the surface. Skycliff Sea Pavilion had always been highly secretive, and this time they were even more chilling. News of Mulan falling into a vegetative state after childbirth had spread, yet they had waited more than 10 days to appear. Clearly, the purpose wasn't to save her but to examine the child to confirm if Shen Yi carried the golden bloodline. Unfortunately, that bloodline had vanished. During that time, Chen Lang had devoted all his mind to saving Mulan and hadn't paid attention to the child, so he didn't know when the bloodline disappeared, whether after a few days or if it had just flickered for an instant and then vanished like smoke. Lai Tangyu slowly reminded him. I remember Mulan once stayed at Skycliff Sea Pavilion for several months to recover from an illness. Chen Lang nodded, but his gaze had changed. Previously, he thought it was normal since the two sides were close, but now, thinking back, it felt increasingly suspicious. Chen Lang immediately sought out his mother-in-law, Su Peipei, and asked her directly why Mulan had gone to Skycliff Sea Pavilion for treatment. She contemplated and then slowly recounted that after marrying him, Bang and Hi became pregnant while Mulan had yet to conceive, causing her worry. Once, while speaking with scholar Tu and Loingak, she heard that they conducted deep research in this field and had specialized female scholars, so seeing that he knew them, she decided to go there. After hearing this, Chen Lang felt a chill run down his spine. It turned out the trip was not simple at all. Mulan had been guided to Skycliff Sea Pavilion. Curing infertility in the modern world is as difficult as reaching the heavens, let alone here, yet after only a few months of treatment, she was completely cured. Afterward, she and Chen Lang were intimate and she conceived almost immediately, on the first try, even giving birth to a nearly perfect child whose appearance gathered all the best traits of both parents. But the most terrifying thing was still the golden bloodline, a god-defying thing that appeared and then vanished completely. The problem was its connection to Skycliff Sea Pavilion. What had they done to Mulan's body? Or to put it bluntly, were they conducting an experiment using Chen Lang and Mulan as raw materials to create a child with that bloodline? Or was there an even deeper conspiracy hidden behind it? The more he thought, the more his heart sank. Skycliff Sea Pavilion, already mysterious, was now unfathomable, and what role did Ninghan ultimately play in this play? Was Mulan nearly losing her life also due to the hand of Skycliff Sea Pavilion? Was it all a prearranged conspiracy? If so, what was their goal? That night, Chen Lang stayed awake, calculating all night before determining two key points. First, to save Mulan, he had to activate or even reform the bloodline in her body, otherwise he would leave this world, and time was only about a month. Second, his understanding of bloodlines was too shallow. If he continued to grope in the dark as he was now, he certainly wouldn't make it in time. History showed that every invention required the price of countless failures, sometimes thousands or tens of thousands of trials, and many never reached success in their entire lives. Yet he did not have a lifetime. In 1 month, Mulan might no longer have a chance. To succeed, Chen Lang had to access deep-level data, either ancient legacies or the accumulated research of this world over hundreds of thousands of years. He had to go to Skycliff Sea Pavilion. Currently, his experiments had hit the ceiling of his knowledge. To save Mulan and have her bloodline undergo a transformation, he needed the classic texts on bloodlines, things buried since ancient times or secrets kept by powers like Skycliff Sea Pavilion after Jan Lai destroyed the Phoenix. Chen Lang turned and spoke decisively. Senior Sword King, accompany me on a trip to Skycliff Sea Pavilion right now. Lai Tangyu nodded without asking further. I will drive the carriage for you. The horse carriage sped along like an arrow, pulled by 3 fine horses whose hooves thundered like drumbeats, almost without rest. In just a day and a half, Chen Lang stood before Skycliff Sea Pavilion. The last time he had come here was nearly 2 years ago, when his heart was full of reverence, like going on a pilgrimage. This time, Skycliff Sea Pavilion still stood tall by the seashore, shrouded in thin mist, both magnificent and majestic, a place called the Palace of Knowledge and the Fortress of Civilization, but in Chen Lang's eyes, it looked exactly like a fake Lane temple, like in Journey to the West when Sun Wukong and Tang Senzing arrived at a grand temple thinking they had reached the Western heaven, where the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were all dignified, but it was all just a shell, with the inside full of disguised demons. Chen Lang stepped forward and knocked. The large gate opened a crack, revealing a familiar face, the very scholar who had received him 2 years ago. Back then, the scholar had treated him as a rare genius and was extremely enthusiastic. Now, his gaze was as cold as if they had never met. Who are you and what is your business? Chen Lang replied calmly. I'm Chen Lang, here to borrow a few classic texts for research. Upon hearing his name, the other party frowned, his voice instantly turning as cold as ice water. Skycliff Sea Pavilion does not welcome you. Leave at once. With those words, the door slammed shut without hesitation. The atmosphere immediately became stifling. Chen Lang stood before the closed gate, his gaze gradually sharpening. He spoke loudly, each word striking like a hammer inside. Pass a message to Ninghen. Tell her to come out. I want to make a deal. A moment later, Ninghen appeared before him, still as composed as ever, a light smile on her lips as if there had never been any conflict between them. She said, Chen Lang, what business do you have with me? Chen Lang didn't beat around the bush. I heard that Skycliff Sea Pavilion recently announced a millennium-level difficult problem, the kind that takes hundreds or even thousands of years to solve. Ninghan nodded slightly. He continued, and there is the ancient classic text, the blood scripture. If I remember correctly, is your most precious treasure. Ninghan still nodded silently. Previously, Chen Lang had misunderstood, thinking the most precious things in the storehouse were martial arts secrets like peerless sword techniques or god-defying internal arts, but now he knew better. Those individual martial arts were worth little compared to the classic texts related to ancient civilizations and mysterious knowledge, which were the forbidden areas they absolutely would not share. Chen Lang looked straight at the door and spoke decisively. I can solve the problem. The condition is that you lend me the blood scripture for 24 hours. Ninghan replied, wait a moment, I need to go inside to ask for instructions. The entire conversation from beginning to end took place through the closed door. Only voices were heard, no faces seen. Then, she left. Chen Lang stood waiting, but he wasn't just waiting for an answer. Was 100 or 1,000-year problem merely mathematics? No, according to his speculation, it could be the key to opening some ancient ruin. For Skycliff Sea Pavilion, its value was by no means small. This trip was both a request for help and a test. A moment later, Ninghan returned and said, I'm sorry, it's not possible. Chen Lang narrowed his eyes slightly. Then what would it take to exchange for the blood scripture? I'm sorry. She shook her head. There is no way. The atmosphere immediately turned heavy. In that case, there is nothing more. I shall take my leave. Just as Ninghan turned to leave, Chen Lang shouted from outside, what on earth do you want from me? Why did you lead my wife here to alter her bloodline? Ninghan chuckled softly, her voice still indifferent. Master Shen thinks too much. You possess nothing that Skycliff Sea Pavilion needs, and in fact, there is nothing in this world that we need. Having said that, she turned and walked away, the door slamming shut decisively. Although the outer door was already closed, the sound of another cold closure echoed from within. The voice of the skull from early rang out. Chen Lang, from now on, Skycliff Sea Pavilion absolutely does not welcome you. Please show some self-respect. Chen Lang said no more and turned to leave, quickly setting off with Lai Tangqiu. Did we fail? Lai Tangqiu asked. Chen Lang shook his head, his voice calm. Before coming, I had no expectation of success. This trip was only a test. Then did the test yield anything? It was enough. His gaze darkened, his mind full of calculations. A single brief encounter had unearthed quite a few clues. First, that so-called 100-year or 1,000-year difficulty was absolutely not just a math problem. It was directly related to a key clue to the ancient ruins. Why was he so sure? Because when he offered to exchange the solution for the blood scripture, Ninghan could have decided on her own, but she intentionally went inside to pretend to ask for instructions, a clumsy act. The pavilion master, Zhu Sai, was fundamentally not there. The entirety of Skycliff Sea Pavilion was currently under her control. She simply wanted to refuse and didn't want to reveal the importance of the problem. Furthermore, a few months ago, she herself had invited Chen Lang, asking him to decipher the clues to the ruins. Right after the discovery of those ruins' traces, Skycliff Sea Pavilion soon announced the Millennium difficulty. Everything connected in a line. Second, what did they ultimately want from him? The answer was that they hadn't achieved it yet, but they had certainly targeted him. According to Ninghan, those ancient ruins were so important they could be called great. She should have been there excavating with the pavilion master, yet she returned. Why? It certainly wasn't because of the war in the southern New Kingdom, so could it be because of Mulan giving birth, an event significant enough to make the always lofty Skycliff Sea Pavilion pay special attention? After this incident, the veil of truth has yet to be fully lifted, but at least it has revealed a few hazy corners that make one itching to investigate further. At the same time, in the Heavenly Cliff Pavilion, Her Highness the Princess stood there as a senior scholar spoke. We have checked 3 times, and the child born to Mulan does not possess the golden bloodline. All indicators have been carefully cross-referenced, and the bloodline talent is almost entirely inherited from Chen Lang, or to put it bluntly, is virtually non-existent. Ninghan fell silent for a moment before asking, then why did Mulan fall into such a strange state of coma? The scholar replied, it may be because our intervention was too strong. While at the Heavenly Cliff Pavilion, we nearly restructured her entire internal environment to support the pregnancy, but after she left, the supply of medicine and energy was cut off, causing her bloodline energy to gradually deplete until it was almost dry, leaving the room as silent as a house in mourning. A moment later, another scholar asked tentatively, if Chen Lang has outlived his usefulness, should we dispose of him to keep things tidy? Ninghan did not answer immediately. She stood there with a gaze as deep as an abyss, as if calculating something profound, then shook her head gently without explanation, for she had a clear premonition that this matter was not as simple as it appeared, that things seen were not necessarily the truth, and that life truly loves to troll people. As for Chen Lang and Sword King Lai Tangqiu, they did not return home directly but disguised themselves thoroughly, concealing their identities as they secretly headed west. This time, Chen Lang did not ride in a carriage but rode a horse for a cooler approach, and the two barely rested, pushing the horses day and night to cover thousands of miles, with Mount Fudo as their true destination. Along the way, they traversed the entire Tannan province, where the atmosphere of war was so thick that even breathing felt heavy. Soldiers and laborers stretched out like floodwaters rushing toward the south, with checkpoints every 10 miles where soldiers and militias took turns inspecting. Cities and towns were under nighttime curfew, and provisions and weapons flowed to the front lines like a river meeting the sea, never stopping. This was no longer a sporadic conflict but an all-out war effort by the entire nation. From preparation to mobilization took several months, and from mobilization to the outbreak of war took just as long. Yet even without trying to inquire, Chen Lang could feel the state of Chu closing in. The 100,000 strong Salmon army was only a few hundred miles from the South O Kingdom, and a battle deciding the fate of the two countries was approaching. The storm was about to break, and moving from Tannan to Tangxi, the atmosphere felt even heavier, like black clouds pressing down on the heads. The feeling of murderous intent here was no longer a metaphor, but hung directly over them. Because the scale of this battle far exceeded expectations, the state of Chu had assembled up to 230,000 troops. The border between the two countries was like a giant frying pan, with flames blazing underneath and oil boiling at the top. A single drop of water would be enough to cause it to explode into a sea of fire. On the side of the state of Viet, Dan Yao's army had been stretched to its limit yet still lacked an advantage, so King Ning Yuanxin gritted his teeth and ordered over 20,000 reinforcements to Jiangxi City, making the current odds 120,000 against 230,000. Despite the massive discrepancy, the state of Viet remained the defensive side, and Ning Yuanxin's request to Zhang Yao was simple: hold the front line and stall the Chu army to prevent a total collapse. When Shenlang entered Tianxi province, the area had been completely militarized. Merchants were banned from trading and halted, civilians were forbidden from leaving the territories, and the roads were occupied only by military personnel, officials, and messengers. Shenlang and Lai Tangqiu belonged to the latter category, and being high level at that, they had impeccable paperwork ranging from official dispatches to secret letters, allowing them to pass through each layer of checkpoint smoothly with the goal of leaving the state of Viet for the state of Qin, then crossing Chu to continue westward to Mount Fuder, passing through Zhenyuan City. Shenlang frowned, feeling that something was wrong. The Zhenyuan Marquis mansion had now been turned into a dense encampment, and he wondered what the governor of Tianxi, Bang Zixu, was actually doing, why he had deployed such heavy defenses on the Qin border and built a series of defensive lines while the state of Viet and the state of Qin were currently strategic allies. Previously, Shenlang himself had built camps to support the state of Qin because the cavalry was unique and everything was custom designed. Those camps were meant for coordination when they mobilized, but now they had been completely dismantled without a trace. Shenlang's eyes grew cold just as they were intercepted by a military unit for inspection. Where to? State of Qin. Why? Secret official business. Specific mission. You are not qualified to know. The atmosphere instantly became tense as a string, and the officer narrowed his eyes, demanding they present their travel permits. Shenlang calmly produced all his documents along with a medallion not from the Black Water Bureau which had only a single character, Yuan, engraved on it. Upon seeing it, the officer's expression changed significantly. He dared not ask another question, immediately returned the documents, and silently let them pass, allowing Shenlang and Lai Tangqiu to enter the territory of the state of Qin. After the two had been far, someone behind whispered, "Commander, who were those two?" The commander glanced at the sky and raised a finger without saying a word, his face as pale as if he had seen a ghost, and just seeing that was enough to give the other man goosebumps, scaring him into silence. Seeing Shenlang calmly work away, the guard couldn't help but blurt out, "His Majesty's words are indeed reasonable. A great nation like ours is trying to curry favor with a barbarian. What if that country is powerful? The queen has already been conquered by Shenlang. They truly are a strange couple. Sooner or later, our great army will sweep away that barbarian." As for Shenlang, he couldn't be bothered to think about worldly affairs at this moment. In his mind, there was only one goal, to save Mulan. All matters of national importance were pushed aside. The person in his heart remained number one. Even though the capital city of Jiang Kingdom was right before them, knowing that Big Idiot was in the palace, the two didn't stop by. They rode the horses as if rushing for an urgent matter, crossing Jiang Kingdom, traversing half the territory of Chu, galloping for 8 days and 9 nights without rest, finally reaching the foot of Mount Fudu, a place located between Chu, Da, and Zhen, belonging to no one, a type of land he claimed for himself, daring anyone to object. If the CELESTIL Chinese Let Us See Pavilion still had some faint connections with the mortal world, annually releasing challenges for the public's amusement and even selecting a few people as honorary scholars, Mount Fudu was a complete opposite. This place was tightly sealed, almost completely cut off from all external contact. Disciples rarely appeared, resembling a legendary secret society whose name alone suggested it wasn't for ordinary people. And its location was no less troublesome. It lies in the center of Fuhai, a massive lake spanning over 6,000 square kilometers. Although called a lake, its grandeur is no less than that of a sea. Calling it a sea would not be wrong. This is because it sits at an altitude of over 3,500 meters, like an upgraded version of Qinghai Lake, the only difference being that the water here is fresh. Reaching Mount Fudu isn't as simple as just wanting to row a boat out. To enter and survive, one must depart from Fuhai Pier, almost the only main entrance. Otherwise, any lingering boat will be treated as a living target, and the outcome goes without saying. Before even admiring the scenery, one would become a permanent resident. Before him was Fuhai Pier. Shenlang was startled by the sight. It was called a pier for show, but it was so tiny it made one want to turn back. Only one small boat lay silently at the pier, enough to reveal the terrifying level of hospitality. Shenlang stepped forward and clasped his hands. "This elder brother, I wish to return to Mount Fudu." The boatman, originally a disciple dozing off after not seeing anyone for half a month, woke up with a start upon hearing this. He looked at Shenlang as if wondering if it was a dream or reality, thinking to himself, "This person calls me elder brother and demands to return to Mount Fudu. Is he tired of living?" After thinking, he said, "Everyone in my sect recognizes each other. I've never seen you. Just leave to avoid trouble." Shenlang remained calm. "I'm telling the truth. I'm a new disciple, and my master is Wu Tuzi." Hearing this, the boatman let out a cold laugh. For Wu Tuzi to accept a disciple is harder than for her to smile at someone else. Her entire life is dedicated to martial arts practice and research. Anyone who speaks more than 3 sentences to her is enough to provoke her killing intent for wasting her time. She wouldn't even acknowledge her own nephew, let alone a stranger. There was once someone who tried to get close and almost lost something vital to their life. For such a person to accept a disciple sounds utterly wrong. If you don't leave, you're in danger. He looked at Lai Tangqiu, knowing he wasn't ordinary, but high martial arts were useless here. Mount Fudu was famous not only for its swords but also for its poisons. Shenlang said no more. He took out a token and presented it with both hands. "Elder brother, please take a look." This action startled Lai Tangqiu behind him. He thought to himself, "Good heavens, the Mount Fudu token. Where did he get it? Is it real or fake? If it were fake, it would be tantamount to seeking death on an upgraded level. If Mount Fudu discovered it, 10 lives wouldn't be enough." The boatman initially intended to laugh, but upon holding the token, his expression gradually changed. The material, weight, color, and hidden patterns were all perfectly accurate in every detail. Held up to the light, the token transformed, at times showing the 2 characters Fudu, and at other times revealing a solemn design. The mechanism was so exquisite that it was impossible to counterfeit. His heart churned. Could this person truly be Wu Tuzi's disciple? But she has almost never left the mountain. How could she accept a disciple from outside? You are definitely Elder Wu Tuzi's disciple. He asked again, still half believing, half doubting. That's right, Chen-Lang replied firmly. He was also a little surprised, not expecting that the master he so casually acquired would turn out to be a high-ranking elder. The boatman remained half believing, half doubting, but since the token was real, he was forced to follow the rules. You may board the boat, but only you. No sooner had he finished speaking than Lai Tankyu's expression changed. Even with him accompanying Chen-Lang, it was uncertain if Chen-Lang's life could be protected, let alone letting him go into that place alone, and with the added suspicion of a fake token it was truly like walking into a tiger's den with one's own feet tied. But Chen-Lang merely turned back, nodded, and stepped onto the boat without hesitation. Sword King Lai Tankyu remained worried, his face visibly pale. This departure of Chen-Lang's was likely to bring more ill than good. The two quickly boarded the boat and left the pier. Soon they were in the middle of the lake. The boatman said nothing, rowing directly north. The boat's shadow receded into the distance, leaving only Lai Tankyu standing by the shore, sighing. At this point, he could only resign himself to fate, hoping Chen-Lang would once again create a miracle, though he himself felt it was a slim chance, because on Mount Fudu, whether saving or seizing someone, it was beyond the capabilities of a Sword King. Sitting on the boat, Chen-Lang frowned in thought. This boatman was by no means ordinary. His martial arts were so high that the small boat glided as swiftly as an arrow, cutting through the water effortlessly. The vast Fuhai seemed boundless, with its crystal clear water shimmering emerald green like jade, so beautiful it made people forget this was a gateway to death. Along the way, the two remained silent. One didn't speak, the other was busy calculating. In fact, the trip to Mount Fudu had been part of Chen-Lang's plan from the start, but because of Mulan, he had to accelerate the pace, transforming a long-term plan into an urgent mission. This time, there were two objectives. First, to borrow the blood scripture to save Mulan. Second, to formally acknowledge Wu Tuzi as his master. This person held an extremely high position and was famously eccentric. If she approved, she would protect him to the very end. If successful, he would gain an enormous backing. In the mortal world, he already had Ning Yuangsun as his backer. If he also had Wu Tuzi in the martial arts world, he would be respected everywhere he went. He wouldn't need to roam freely, but it would be enough to make others wary. The problem was how to sway Wu Tuzi. This was a most difficult hurdle. People didn't call her the stone demonic woman for nothing. Winning her over was harder than moving mountains, and emotional matters were out of the question. Even accepting someone as a disciple was almost impossible. While Chen-Lang's time was tragically short, he had to resolve everything in a few days at most. Just hearing about it made the task seem daunting, but he had no choice but to do it. He had to take the risk. The boat glided for over 10 hours. It was fast, but he sat so long he felt like he was turning to stone. The initial scenery of Fuhai was captivating: blue water, white sky, but looking at it for too long became boring. Beauty that never changed was like eating the same dish repeatedly until you grew tired of it. Mount Fudu truly embodied separation from the world. It was already difficult to enter, and then it was isolated. Fortunately, after a long journey, the destination appeared in the distance. It wasn't a single island but scattered archipelagos, with a colossal main island at the center, featuring a towering mountain. Perhaps that was Mount Fudu, but the boatman didn't take him there. Instead, he circled to another small island. The small island had only one house, surrounded by vibrant forests and flower gardens, but upon closer inspection, something felt off. The colors were too vivid, a dangerously beautiful kind that suggested easy poisoning upon contact. You've arrived. Go ahead and ascend. As soon as the boatman finished speaking and docked, Chen-Lang hadn't even found his footing when the boatman turned and sped off as if he had encountered something terrifying. Seeing him flee, it was unclear if he was afraid of the island or its owner, Wu Tuzi. He even shouted, "Elder Wu Tuzi, your disciple has arrived." Then immediately rowed back towards the central main island. Clearly, he was going to report, because while he didn't recognize Chen-Lang, the token seemed genuine. In this situation, not asterisk reporting would be strange. That meant Chen-Lang's time was ticking, for he knew very well that the token was fake. On Mount Fudu, counterfeiting such an item was tantamount to signing one's own death warrant. Perhaps martial artists would arrive any moment to execute him. Therefore, he had no choice but to resolve everything in the shortest possible time, save Mulan, formally acknowledge Wu Tuzi as his master, and turn the fake into reality. As long as he officially became a disciple, the token, even if fake, would become real. To put it bluntly, this was a life or death gamble where he had staked his entire existence. As soon as he stepped onto the island, he felt an unpleasant sense of compulsion. The house before him was exquisitely detailed to an extreme, everything in absolute symmetry, as if someone had measured every inch before building it. Outside, too, every branch of the forest trees and flower gardens was meticulously pruned, unnaturally precise, as if the entire world were forced to conform to a perfectly chilling design. In Chen-Lang's mind, there was only one thought: this place was not a dwelling but a living symmetry press. If the Snow Mountain old demon was merely eccentric, then the owner of this place was a real deal. Just standing there made others feel like they were breaking rules. That's why the boatman didn't dare take another step, as if one more step would mean being erased. Just then, an icy voice echoed from inside. "Who is it?" Chen-Lang spoke up. "Disciple Chen-Lang respectfully greets master." Before his words finished, the door opened, and then Chen-Lang saw a figure step out. More accurately, a female phantom appeared. Her skin was pale, devoid of any color. Her lips were faint. Her entire being seemed to merge with the light, leaving only a sensation of extreme coldness and cleanliness. Her long hair hung loose, and she wore a simple white robe, sounding them more like an idea than a human. Wu Tuzi was truly a lone star of calamity, a woman standing at the pinnacle of martial arts. No one knew the true depth of her power, only that even the snow-concealed goddess might not be able to compare. More importantly, she was pathologically clean, tolerating not the slightest disorder in her sight. "You're Chen-Lang, the one who dared to provoke me in a letter and even send a portrait." Her voice was icy cold. Chen-Lang immediately nodded. "Indeed, this disciple. Respected master, this disciple has traveled thousands of miles just to meet you. I would have no regrets even in death." Before his words finished, Wu Tuzi disappeared and reappeared, holding 2 small daggers in her hands. The atmosphere instantly became so perilous that he felt if he said one wrong word, he would perish on the spot. But he had no time to tremble, so he immediately played his trump card, slamming it down with a bang like wood being split. Honored teacher, your disciple brings world-shaking news. The ancient ruins of Pagoda Mountain and the Horizon Sea Pavilion are fighting over them, and I have found the crucial clue. This news was enough to make all superpowers jump up in alarm. Ancient ruins were the foundations for transcendental powers to compete over, as well as the keys to upgrading entire sects. Tianlang was certain no one could remain indifferent unless they were no longer human. Wu Tuzi looked at him, her eyes suddenly sparkling. It wasn't ordinary interest, but the gaze of a researcher encountering a perfect living test subject. You've come at exactly the right time, she said. Tianlang stiffened slightly. I was just short on test materials. The animals are all dead, and now I need a living person. The air was as cold as if frozen. Before he could realize what was happening, Tianlang was dragged straight inside. In the blink of an eye, he was tied up as tight as a package. She took out a tube of bright green liquid, her voice ice cold. Don't worry, it'll be over soon. In half a moment, they will gnaw at you and turn you into a picturesque puddle of liquid. Without giving him a chance to struggle, she immediately made a small incision on his body. Tianlang was helpless, using his keen eyes to observe every move she made. The deep green liquid, carrying a spine-chilling sensation, was injected straight into his heart without hesitation. At that moment, tens of billions of parasitic bugs seemed to be awakened simultaneously, swarming into his heart. Tianlang could only exclaim in his mind, this isn't becoming an apprentice, it's clearly stepping into a laboratory from hell. His whole body burned, and he trembled violently like a crazed beast. Honestly, was the scene outside of his calculations? The answer was not at all. It was even heading in the direction he had hoped for. Before arriving at Pagoda Mountain, Tianlang had prepared countless scenarios. The most likely possibility was that the ancient ruins were the key, and if so, any related clues would make the eyes of those at Pagoda Mountain light up like headlights. However, he knew clearly that what attracted Wu Tuzi wasn't words or secrets, but himself, though not by offering himself up for random research, but rather because of his special constitution. Long ago, he had promised Mulan to make her the greatest martial artist in the world, and since then, he had dived into a series of experiments. The results were failure after failure, but during that process, he came up with an even crazier idea. If he couldn't use others, why not try himself? Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to release parasitic bugs into his body purely by chance. To someone who valued his life, that would be like signing his own death warrant. So, he chose a safer method, using his blood for experiments, and the results defied all logic. The terrifying bugs of Pagoda Mountain would die instantly upon touching his blood. No struggling, no resistance, they vanished completely as if erased before they could even call for help. When he first saw it, Tianlang thought he was dreaming. He tried a second, third, then dozens of times with primal bugs to find the course, but remained helpless. It was as if his blood was born solely to counter everything related to these insects. That wasn't all. He also tested his blood on animals, and they remained perfectly healthy and unharmed. Only the parasitic bugs were completely neutralized. Thus, he had to accept the truth. His blood was absolute poison to the bugs of Pagoda Mountain. From then on, the plan formed. If Pagoda Mountain researched these bugs and he was a working natural enemy, then he was something they couldn't ignore, especially to a madman like Wu Tuzi, who wouldn't kill him but would use him to the fullest extent. That's why Tianlang dared to step inside. Currently, with the bugs injected straight into his heart, the scene was gruesome but still fit the grand script he had planned. The only difference was that before, he had only tested with blood, whereas now he had become a real living subject, a whole new level. Watching the bugs gradually die inside his body, she laughed coldly in excitement. Just how many bugs had been pumped in just now? A few billion, or dozens of billions. These are brand new origin bugs that I cultivated, Wu Tuzi explained coldly, her voice mixed with the excitement of a researcher. They have consumed hundreds of lives and are still evolving constantly. In just a few more years, I can create super origin bugs that far exceed all of current Pagoda Mountain. Hearing this, Tianlang thought to himself that origin bug was a formal term, not ordinary parasitic bugs but a higher, more terrifying grade that was biologically evolutionary. Moreover, the things flowing in his body had previously consumed hundreds of other lives. In about half a moment, Wu Tuzi continued, they will secrete all kinds of special energy, first dissolving your body into liquid and then slowly eating it all up. It sounded polite, but essentially it was pre-digestion before consumption, leaving no cell behind. These origin bugs also had a cloning ability. Upon swallowing a life form, they would analyze and replicate its strongest energy to increase their own strength. Simply put, the more they ate, the stronger they got. The more they killed, the more they evolved. She laughed maniacally, her cheeks flushing red. Your name is Tianlang, right? What is your strongest energy? Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. TV.